Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Pipe Smoking with Colonel Calabash. Glad everyone's back today, and we appreciate all of our new subscribers on our YouTube channel. And today we're going to start out with a little story. Now this story may at first sound like we're talking about automobiles, but we're really not. We're talking about pipes. But you'll see at the end of the story what we're talking about. For some time, I worked for a major chemical company. Had a pretty good boss, too. He was a fine fella. And one day we were talking about pipe smoking. Imagine that. He was puffing on this god-awful cheap pipe. And I finally just said, "Where'd you get the pipe?" "Oh, I got it at a drugstore. They had a whole box full of them." Well, I could imagine what he paid and what he got. Now, this was several years ago, and you could get a real good pipe several years ago for around $25. Well, as we talked further, I found out that indeed he bought it out of a box of pipes at a drugstore, and it just really wasn't much of a pipe. So I asked him, I said, if you would pay about $25 or $30, you could get a real good pipe. Now, this is a supervisor, and he's making some real good money. His reply, of course, was, "I wouldn't pay that much for a pipe." Well, then he admitted it sure was a nice-looking pipe, and it probably smoked good, and I said, "Yes, it does." Finally, I asked him, I said, "How'd you get to work tonight?" He said, "Well, I drove." I said, No, that's not the question. I said, "What did you drive to work tonight?" He said, "Oh, I drove that white Cadillac that you've seen me drive a lot." And I said, "Well, you could have got here in a Volkswagen." "Well, sure, I could have got here in a Volkswagen, but it wouldn't have been near as comfortable and near as nice a ride." And I said, "Well, the same thing applies to pipes. Spend a little more and get yourself a good pipe." Well, finally he did do that, and he found out really quick that I was right, and he liked the nicer pipe, and I never did see him smoke the old one again. But, a pipe becomes a part of you, and he found out soon that he wanted to be a better pipe a part of him. Now, a lot of times we talk about pipe shapes. There's standard shapes, bent, straight. Some pipe bowls are tall, some are short. I'm not going to go into all the different shapes because if you smoked a pipe for any length of time, there's a list a mile long. But today, I'm going to give you what is strictly my opinion. And this is what I look for when I'm buying a new pipe. Now, in reference to the words new pipe, it may be an estate pipe, but I'm still looking for the same things that I would be if I bought it brand new out of a shop. Now, here again, this is what I look for. First thing is a nice stem. I want a nice, comfortable stem. Now, personally, I prefer lucite. The main reason that I prefer the lucite, I guess you call it laziness, they're easier to keep clean. And I like that. Now, some pipers, they prefer vulcanite because it's a little softer and I guess easier on the teeth. Problem with vulcanite is called oxidation, and sometimes that can be a major problem in cleaning up with a pipe that has a vulcanite stem. Now, there are other items that they make stems out of. There's been some bone stems, and I've even seen pipes that actually had briar stems to them. Another thing I look for in a new pipe is thick walls on the bowl. It seems to transfer the heat less to the outside, plus it keeps the smoke cooler too. So I look for the thick bowls when I'm getting a new pipe. Another thing I like to have is, of course, coming out of the pipe bowl, you have the shank. I like for the walls on the shank to be fairly thick. I will explain that also. I guess one of the best pipe manufacturers I know of is Stanwell. They make some awful good pipes. But some of their pipes have a small shank from the bowl to the stem. And that shank is thin, and you have to be extremely careful not to crack that shank when you're taking the stem out and putting it back in. So I kind of prefer the thicker walls on the shank. Now here's an area that I might get quite a bit of disagreement. I personally prefer bent pipes. To me, they seem a little bit more comfortable, but here again, some people like the straight pipes better, so it's a personal choice. Now, here we come to an area that it's going to sound like just a few seconds ago I said one thing, and now I'm saying something else, and that's not really what I'm doing. We talked about the walls of the bowl being thick, and I do like that. But the weight of the bowl is also a big thing. And the heavy pipes often mean poor quality briar, or in the case of a meerschaum, you may have a heavy meerschaum which is not block meerschaum, but is made out of pressed meerschaum, which is heavier. So the bowl weight is a big thing in a smoking pipe. You want something with a reasonably light bowl to it. Now, what about the finish on a bowl? Well, mostly you've got to either say that they're rusticated, smooth, or sandblast. Some pipers believe, and I'm one of them, that a rusticated finish on a pipe smokes cooler. You have more area there to have air coming there around the bowl. And so they do believe that the rusticated pipe smokes cooler. What I don't want, whether it's smooth or whatever, is a heavy lacquer finish because it will not let that pipe breathe. Another thing we can say about pipes is the manner in which they're carved. Some pipes are strictly machine carved. They're machine made on a wood lay. They have standard shapes, and they're mass produced. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're not good pipes. They are. There's a lot of good pipes that are machine made, and they're well built. And the tolerances on them where they fit together are excellent. But they are strictly machine carved. Hand carved pipes. Now, this is where you get up into a little money. The makers sit there and they hand carve that pipe. They do every little thing on that bowl and shank by hand. Everything except the tobacco chamber and the air hole, which those two things are drilled, but the rest is hand carved. This is one of the reasons I like them. Usually, a lot of times they're freehands, and you know me, I love freehands. But it's kind of like that carver gives you a little bit of his life and attitude in making that pipe. It's a little more of a personal thing. Now let's take an exception to both of those. A gourd calabash pipe, they're in the shape of the gourd. The gourds are specially grown. I'm sure they put blocks under them so they'll curve. And there may be some design carving or etching on the gourd part of the pipe, but it is basically as grown. There may be some carving around the top of the meerschaum insert, the bowl insert. Calabash pipes can get extremely expensive. I have about 5 or 6 of them, and they really smoke great. As most all of you have already heard me say, I am partial to freehand pipes and probably always will be, especially to those that have the plateau bowl tops. Pipes are works of art, and to me, the best works are the freehands. Most are mostly or totally handmade, which add to their, desirability to me. Okay, if you're a pipe manufacturer or a carver, go ahead and get your rocks, your rotten tomatoes, put them in a basket and get them ready to throw at me. Because I'm going to address something, and here again, as I always say, this is my opinion. The question is, are you paying extra for a brand name pipe? And my answer is yes, in some cases. Now, some brand names do come at a high price, and they're probably worth it. But some brand names are not worth the extra cost. Some of that cost that you see is that brand name has earned a reputation for excellence and deserves the extra cost. When you choose a pipe, do it wisely and look at the pipe very closely. Often the higher priced pipes do use better briar. Basically, there are two types of briar: the plateau, which is the highest grade, and they are as perfect in grain and without flaws as possible. These are used on a lot of the higher priced pipes. The other grade is Ebushan. It's a second grade, and it comes in several subgrades. They can come with a few flaws, or they can come with lots of flaws. Some of the cheaper pipes, they're probably going to have fills in them, and in some cases it does not harm the smoking pleasure, but it is not a quality grade pipe. Sometimes these flaws do not show up until they're in the carving process, and if they're not extremely bad, they will use a little filler and use those as seconds. I have several good pipes by major manufacturers that are seconds, and they smoke great, so don't take them off your list just because they're seconds. Now it's time for the big thing for our show today, and that's the salute of the pipe group for the week. Now, this week we've got a pipe group that is just a little bit different from most. It is Tobacco Pipe Restorers. That's the Facebook group for the week. It's got just under 1,800 members. It's got 3 admins and 2 moderators. Here's the thing that's a little different for this pipe group. This group shows a lot of before and after photos of pipes that have been restored by its members. And it gives tips on restoring pipes. And you may be a little surprised at some of the ways and some of the tools they use to restore pipes. It's amazing. I know I've learned a lot from them. If you're not a member, I would suggest that you join and do like I done, learn how to restore some pipes there. I recommend it to you, and I think you'll enjoy it. Next week, we'll have another Facebook pipe site to salute, and we'll be talking about pipe stems and keeping your pipe clean. And we'll be talking about some of the solutions and tools we use to keep pipes clean and in good shape. But for now, that's going to wrap it up. We appreciate everybody listening. Hope this has been entertaining and educational. And until next week, happy pipe smoking.